Hambit, how was your weekend? I don't remember seeing you at school.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I went to a museum instead. I saw some paintings by Francisco Goya. Oh, you've heard of him, right?
Of course, I know his black painting series. He's also famous for the painting Satan devouring his son, right?
Yeah, I saw that piece of art too. It was kind of creepy, but the longer I look at it, the more I felt. I think I started to understand why he painted the black paintings.
Oh, I also studied his artworks from YouTube. We should definitely talk about this today for our podcast.
Sure, I'll explain his lifetime and his background.
Oh, okay, then I'll explain some of his artworks, the meanings and the stories behind it.
So, Francisco Goya was born in 1746 in a small Spanish village and later moved to Zaragoza during middle school, where he started to learn painting.
Oh, really? I used to do art when I was middle school too.
Oh, I think that's a critical time when it comes to developing artistic skill. So, anyway, he later married a woman named Josefa when he was about 30, and they had 7 children. Then they moved to the capital of Spain.
I remember he got famous through the royal family. Am I right? Like
Yeah.
before all that dark stuff.
Wow, you really know your stuff. Yeah, so let me tell you how that happened. At first, he worked on tapestry design for the royal residence, which were basically paintings that were turned into the tapestry for palace. And that's how he first got into royal family. In 1783, he got the chance to paint a portrait of the chief minister of Spain, who was close to the king. After the commission, he started painting many of the royal families in the kingdom, and then he got a stable job as a painter for the king. And right about when the French Revolution began, he was officially appointed as a court painter to King Charles IV. Because all of this, Goya became really well known for his paintings.
Oh, yeah, and because Spain was going through a lot of political and social chaos back then, he captured the perspective of that really well in his paintings.
Oh, really? I only got to hear about his life, so I don't know much know about what was happening in Spain then.
Oh, so let me explain. Spain was going through a war with France, and that actually left a big change on his artwork. And this is before he went deaf and started to draw the black paintings.
Oh, so you're telling me two things changed his art forever. First, the Spanish War, second, Goya become deaf.
Yes, you're correct. So let's talk about what happened to Spain during that time and what happened to Goya.
Okay, we should start with the Spanish Wars because it's the first occasion that changed the perspective of modern art.
Okay, so when we think about war paintings, we usually think of scenes of glory, victories, heroes, and pride, right?
Yes, paintings like Libertary leading the people by using the Racra.
Delacroix?
Yes.
But Francisco Goya shared a different point of view with us. After the Spanish Independence War, the Spanish government asked Goya to create a painting to commemorate the event.
Right, since it was the Spanish victory, it would be normal to paint a glorious moment of Spain, but Goya decided to focus on the victims of the war.
Right, Goya changed the whole perspective of war paintings.
Yes, and this painting is called the 3rd of May 1808, which is one of the most famous anti-war paintings.
Yes, in this painting, hundreds of Spaniards rebelled, and these Spanish freedom fighters ended up being rounded up by the French soldiers. The man stretching up his hands represents innocence with the color white because he's wearing the color white, and beneath that man we can see piles of dead men, which illustrates how cruel war leads to many innocent deaths.
Oh, also the way the lantern below brightens the innocent man, we can tell that Goya wanted the innocent victims to be the main character.
Yeah, Goya shows that there is no such thing as a hero in a war. This piece is inspired by modern art, like Picasso's famous painting Masquerade in Korea, which illustrates the June 25th war in Korea and the loss of innocent people.
Yeah, Goya shows and presents an anti-hero to the audience. Victims of war still exist today, making this painting timeless. After this event, Goya entered his 70s. His world got darker as he suffered from an unknown illness, which left him completely deaf.
Yes, his hearing loss isolated him and he became more distant from society and politics. He moved to a small house out of the city, which is now known as the House of the Deaf Man. During this time, he still worked for the royal family, but not often though.
Right, so this is where the black painting series was born. He actually painted directly on his walls, which shows that the paintings weren't meant for display in a pretty canvas with a fancy frame.
Right, all of his black paintings were never meant for the public. It's called the black paintings, not just because of the color, but it's like a private dark diary where he handled dark themes.
Like one of those emo notes you write when you're in middle school.
Right, he was in his emo era. Not gonna lie, if I were Goya and I saw these people analyzing my dark artworks that were only meant for me, I would feel kind of exposed. So, jumping back into it, let's talk about one of his most famous and viral paintings, Saturn devouring his son. Ooh.
Oh! I know the original story for this. In Asian mythology, Saturn, the god of agriculture,
Yes.
right, was warned that he lose his power and die because his own son and that his son will kill him and end his power.
Yes.
So Satan got afraid and he ate his own children. Oh, so actually this myth was illustrated by other artists like Peter Paul Rubens. In his art, he painted a story focused on the victimized child.
Oh, so he ate. But Goya ate this up even more. Goya's version is much more disturbing and shows a different message. In the painting, Saturn is illustrated like a monster. His eyes are wide, his body is twisted, and it looks like he's in panic and madness, looking like he's doing something that he doesn't want to do. We can see fear and guilt in Saturn's eyes, which tells us a different story from Peter's painting.
Right. However, there aren't any accurate analysis by Goya since the black paintings weren't for other people to see in the first place. So I guess we'll never know the real story behind it.
Right, but many historians believe that Goya saw himself in Saturn, which is kind of interesting, but also pretty sad. So let me explain this. Goya had 6 children, and unfortunately, only one survived, which shows the common ground he had with Saturn. Because Saturn also had 6 children, he ate 5 of them, and only one survived.
Oh, so maybe Saturn's guilt, his horror, his uncontrollable emotion were Goya's way of painting his own pain, fear, and guilt of losing all of his children.
Yes, I believe that he relates to Saturn's pain of feeling like a monster, holding guilt for his dead children.
Oh, so most of his paintings during the Black period are extremely disturbing and often show criticism against the church. Actually, in many of his paintings, he shows strong hate against people with power like the Pope or the rich and the lawyers. Also, you can see his strong belief in witches, and he often illustrates Satan.
I mean, it was never meant for the public for a reason. If the public knew that he was drawing all these kind of dark paintings, I mean, something worse could have happened to him than going deaf.
Yeah, through his famous career at the lawyer court, with his anti-war paintings, and finally with his Black Series painting, he was able to make his mark in art history.
Yeah, Goya's artworks carry deeper historical, emotional, and psychological meaning than we see on the surface. He invites us to take a more critical perspective on seemingly common happenstances. I would say Goya changed the perspective of art forever. He's often called the first modern artist because he didn't paint what people wanted to see. He chose to paint what they needed to see.
It was an interesting time to share and talk about Goya. Going through a war and losing one of your sons can dramatically change one perspective on life.
Right. So before we end this podcast, I want to throw a question out there. If Goya was alive today, how do you think he would paint modern conflicts or tragedies?
Oh, that's such an insightful question to think about. I wonder who he would choose to paint as the victims. Let's leave that to the listener of our DJUNO podcast.
Thank you for listening. Until now, we were
Hanbit,
and Ruby.
thank you.